What is up, guys? Specstar here today with my draft recap for League Dependency Majors. We did make it up to Majors, and now we've got to impress again and see if we can move up to Masters. Hopefully this time it gets a little bit easier based on the team, although the competition will be an obstacle to it getting easier. We did have a few frustrations with our team last time. It wasn't garbage, but there were a few things that made it a little bit tricky just to get it working the way I wanted it to. But this is what we've got now, and we'll see how this does. Again, we did go a little bit outside of the box team-wise, like we did last season. And I had the third pick in the draft here, and I'm going to go ahead with my first pick and grab Celesteela. Now, one thing you're going to notice is I got some Pokemon here with nicknames. I decided for this season I was going to nickname all of the Pokemon after one of my brothers in LD. And starting off here, I've got Vest the Celesteela, which I paid 18 points for and made my, I made it one of my Z users. And this was my first pick. It's a Pokemon that I think it's number 2. I'm pretty confident in saying that behind Coco, it's the best Pokemon draft format. So I was just going to take it there when Coco was gone, if it was there, and it was. So we're going to go ahead and grab that. Now, you guys kind of know what Celesteela does. It's fat, it takes hits, it annoys to hell with Leech Seed, and it can sweep with Atomize. It's just a little annoying Pokemon with some offense-defensive versatility. And we're going to name it after Vess, who copied a lot of our draft. And we became Celesteela brothers. So, next up here, with my next pick, I'm going to go ahead and take Heatran. This was a result of a lot of what I wanted to take in Snipes. Ideally, this pick would have been Zeraora, but Zeraora went very early, so not able to make that happen. Instead, we're going to have to think on our feet, and we are pretty close to the wheel. So I'm going to do a Heatran Tapu Fini thing here. I was the second pick. I said I was the third. This is nitpicking to go back and correct that, because that probably could have slid, but I was second, actually. But I was close to the wheel, and my plan was to be able to grab Heatran and Tapu Fini together. I thought the three of Celesteela, Heatran, and Tapu Fini would go together pretty well. They're both going to cost 14. Heatran's going to be named after Zern, and my Tapu Fini is going to be named after John, who put in some of the finest work I've seen with Tapu Fini last season, and hopefully we can replicate that ourselves. Although I can't say I've seen much of it elsewhere, but we'll see. I think the three of them just have great synergy together, and well, Suicune getting sniped didn't help me much either, because after Zeraora was sniped, my change of plan was to do Suicune, then Roserade here. Suicune went round 2, so I had to roll with the punches, and I was going to grab Heatran and Fini since the premier bulky waters were gone, and I wanted to make sure I secured a good one. And that's what we got here. So next up here, we've got our Zygarde 10% here. And this Pokemon, it helps with our speed tiers. We had basically nothing for speed at the top. It helps to break steel types, and again, I'm playing with the near wheel, so I was thinking about getting Alakazam next and Zygarde with it. And especially, I knew I wasn't going to get sniped because the person ahead of me did have their Mega already. So here I'm going to take Zygarde and Zam. Actually, there was a scare. I thought I was going to get sniped with Zam earlier, but it did somehow manage to make it back to me in round 5. So I was very happy to grab that there. As I was saying, Zygarde helps with the speed tiers with Zam. Gets me a little something in there. It helps me break steals, which is nice. It gives me another solid Z option that I can afford with Celesteela, and that's something worth noting. And it gives me a Dragon type to complete a Fairy Steel Dragon Core that isn't cucked too badly by Tapu Fini's Misty Terrain, which, for those who don't know, of course does reduce the power of Dragon moves, and of course limits Dragon options. Zygarde can kind of stomach that, as generally it's going to rely more on its ground coverage than its Dragon coverage anyway. So we've got Zygarde there. Zam, a Pokemon that it went round 2 in both of the other 2 LD drafts, so I was happy to get in round 5. I thought it was pretty good value. I know this Pokemon can be incredibly dangerous to deal with and has an amazing speed tier, which is awesome. Speed in Draft League, I'm a big fan of. If I can grab this kind of speed, I love to have it. And that's going to be our Zam pick there. And next up here, we are going to grab Piloswine for 7 points. Oh, I should explain. I nicknamed Zygarde Dog after my good pal Specs King. And I'm going to name Alakazam after Genius X because we know about this Pokemon's IQ. I thought it was a good fit. Coming up next, we've got Dave the Piloswine for 7 points. A lot of you may think Piloswine in the 6th round is pretty early. I'm starting to think that that's going to be more around the norm. In the drafts, we did see Piloswine and Mudsail going pretty early, and that's because these Pokemon are priorities, and it's not a matter of if they're going to be taken, it's a matter of when they're going to be taken. So I was ready to take an early pick to secure Piloswine, which I know is always a priority. And I did find out later that Piloswine was not going to last around much longer if I did not take it here, so I'm content to make that pick there. Piloswine adds Rocks, which I only had Heatran for up to that point. It gives me a nice answer to Electrics, which Zygarde 10 is no electric immunity. It's immune to electric, but it is not an electric immunity. You guys know what I'm saying there. Piloswine, I've used this Pokemon quite a bit before. If you guys have been watching my channel for long, you have been seeing me use this, so I don't have too much to explain about this Pokemon. I'm a big fan of it, and hopefully it can continue to perform strongly as it has for me in the past. Now, next up here, I'm going to go ahead and take Jolteon for 8 points and name it after my 3rd favorite Australian BM. Jolteon, it gives me a nice speed tier between Zygarde and Alakazam, which is pretty nice. It makes my team a little bit more annoying to prep for. Does give me another answer to Electric, which is nice, but more than that, it gives me an Electric myself. Helps me better pressure water types, which I wasn't completely stellar against at this point. So that was pretty good. Helps me deal with particularly bulky waters, which could have been a pest, and I had to do some grabbing for later. Yeah, that's about it for the Jolteon here. And next up, I've got Celebi for 13 points, named after Bonsai, the coach of the Celebes, so there's a good fit there. Celebi was not exactly my ideal grass type. I would have liked Shaman, I would have liked Serena, things like that, but that's what was there. It gave me a 100 speed tier, which is nice, and gives me a solid grass type, which goes well with my Heatran and Tapu Fini, so there's some synergy there. Another reliable rocker, and another good way to pressure some water types, and that is going to be my Celebi there. Next up here, I've got Jeremy the Skuntank. I thought this was definitely a good fit for a nickname because Jeremy stinks, and I thought I would nickname him after the Skuntank on account of that. Skuntank is going to cost me 5 points, and it's going to give me a Pursuit Trapper, which I thought was important to get with Zam. Drapion did get sniped, which did lead to me having to get Skuntank instead, but that's not necessarily the end of the world. Skuntank for 5 is fairly decent value as a Pursuit Trapper. Not a great one, but not the worst one either. There's some people in this league who drafted Mightyena. So, yeah, whenever you think Skuntank isn't a good dark type, could have been Mightyena. Next up here, I've got my Sceptile, which is going to be named after Vinoxio. Sceptile is a Pokemon I'm a fan of for 5 points if I have any terrain. I think it's just a good value for 5 points. I'm a person who thinks when I got 5 points, I'm not going to try to look for a stalwart that really fits my team, patches of weakness, does anything like that. I'm not going to find a Pokemon for 5 points that I'm going to want to be reliably bringing. So I went to look instead for a niche, and that is what Sceptile is with its ability Unburden. I can throw a Misty Seed on this thing, get it pretty quick, and do some setup options with Sword Stance. Sceptile also has a good speed, and if it's an unused speed tier, I could do something different like specs on this. Something like that. Basically just a niche fill here, mostly just to use Misty Seed, and give me an option for situational matchups, since I didn't think I was going to find anything I would bring semi-reliably there. Speaking of niche fills, I've got 2 more of them here. I had 3 points left. I thought Leavanny was better than a lot of the Pokemon in the 3-point range, so I wound up getting a full team of 12, which I don't normally do, but I did here. Leavanny at 2 is a great price. You saw things like Smeargle and Shuckle in the 5-6 point range, so I was happy to take Leavanny for 2. You guys, you know a lot about what this Pokemon does. I had it last season. I think I brought it to 1 game and it didn't do anything, but this might be its year. Oh, we'll see. Of course, this Pokemon is good for one thing, and one thing only. It learns Sticky Web. That is what this thing does. It has a bunch of other moves. That's the only goddamn move it has that's worth a damn, so that's it. And I'm going to be naming this after my boy Count Riolorio. And lastly here we've got Duosion. I went looking for people to fill in the nicknames for these Pokemon, and I had a few picked out already, but there were a few that were available, and the only one that no one asked to be was Duosion. So as I felt Duosion was unloved, I'm gonna name it after the black sheep of our LD family, my boy Turkey. And here we've got Turkey the Duosion. There was a lot of garbage, a lot of straight garbage in this. Oh yeah, and this is Z. This was my last Z with Zydog and my Celesteal, although this thing's not exactly the best user. Anyway, this thing is basically the best of a crappy 1-point field. A lot of junk in there. I was looking for a niche fill. Duosion has a little bit of bulk that can come in handy in specific matchups, particularly with my team being a lot more offensive leaning, I think. It does have some walls, but walls without reliable recovery is more of what you see there, so Duosion could have a niche fill there. Duosion has some sneaky ability to set up with stuff like you can do things like Iron Defense or Acid Armor. It can do Calm Mind, but it also has a sneaky ability to do Trick Room. Maybe even with a Z. Maybe I can throw off a Z on this thing. Get Trick Room going. Life Orb, maybe Z. It has sneakily 125 special attack. Not everyone knows this thing. Not everyone knows that Duosion has as much special attack as Reuniclus, which is kind of nuts, but yeah, that's something interesting about it and valuable. This thing can sneakily be a little bit dangerous. So let's recap my team here. I'm going to go back here. We've got a Celesteela, Heatran, Tapu Fini, Zygarde 10%, Mega Alakazam, Piloswine, Jolteon, Celebi, Skuntank, Sceptile, Leavanny, and Duosion. It's a pretty interesting team, but I guess we'll see how it does. There's definitely stiff competition in here, but let's see how well we can do. Let's see if we can put a dent into the roster here. So that's going to be it for this. If you guys get any predictions about how the team's going to do, drop them in the comment section below. I want to thank you guys for watching. Have yourselves a good night.